Good morning, Denise Dryden here. I'm out on Bainbridge Island and the snow is gone. It's warm enough to sit outside again, and we missed the ferry by 2 minutes. It just went sort of right across this screen and out the back. It would have been fun to have you witness it. It's a beautiful thing. So today I want to talk about, what does multidimensionality mean? What does it mean to be multidimensional? Because I throw that around a lot in the different videos, and I wanted to sort of break it down for you so you could understand. So when I define multidimensional, it's involving several aspects, dimensions, and experiences. It's multifaceted. It's complex. It's nonlinear. Make sense? Okay. Through the mathematics systems theory, it comes into this point where it's not only one independent value can exist. It means that more than one value has to coexist in order for something to happen. So we're looking at that coexisting. Per the Hermetic principles, one of relativity is that nothing exists alone. And we've talked about that. Everything's in relationship to each other. And the other Hermetic principle is of relativity, of correspondence, which is that the symmetry and the harmony between all realms and dimensions, which, is really important that they all interact. So whether it's the emotional, physical, spiritual, or mental, how they interact together is the principle of correspondence. So what we're going to do is explore, what does it mean when they interact, and what does that look like? So the bottom line is that we're accessing information and we respond or we react constantly. Things are coming in and we're like, oh, what's that? So while I'm talking today, I want you to pay attention to what it is you notice in the background. What is it that you notice about my voice? Can you hear people walking down the street? Can you hear the water coming up against the shore? Can you hear the little subtle raindrops as they hit the roof or the deck? Okay? So while we're observing this, we're accessing information. And as we access information, it has really valuable things to teach us. So some of us are comfortable with really linear directions, planning, implementation, completion, seeing things from start to finish, seeing things sequentially move in lines. Makes us very comfortable to know that linear process works. Some of us compartmentalize, which is when I'm on the sports field, I like to do sports. When I'm working, I like to use my brain. When I'm out after work at happy hour or home with my family, I like to use my emotions. So we can compartmentalize these things. And it means that, I have a certain personality that I use with this person in a certain way that I am with that person. Or that my work persona is not the same as my friendship persona, etc. Okay? So compartmentalizing. Some of us are comfortable with frameworks. Needing to know the security of think of how we build a house. The first thing we do is we come up with a floor plan, and then we pour the foundation, and then we build the structure on top of it, and we like to see it kind of come into fruition. We like to know what the goal is and how to make it happen. And then we also like to sort of flourish it with some things that make us happy. But what we're really talking about is the framework, that dependability, that order. Some of us have experienced high levels of anxiety and panic and irritation when there's too much going on at once. Like too many things up in the air. And then what we do is we tip into overwhelm, where we feel out of control, overstimulated, way too many choices, not a really good idea, no real clear ideas of what to do. And then the last one is control. Some of us like to try to control everything, because the idea that something's coming at us that we're not familiar with and we don't know what to do is terrifying. So control. When you see someone who's really controlling, it usually means that they don't have a lot of comfort with multidimensionality, or they're pretty multidimensional and they have no idea what to do, right? That makes sense to me. So I want to add one more piece from Alan Seal, and he does the transformational presence coaching and leadership. So there's 4 ways of looking at the world. One is simple. There's those simple things that what's working, what's not. And the analogy I would use is plumbing. When the water's coming through the pipe, you know what's working. When it's not coming through the pipe, you know what's wrong. Or you can trace it. And you know how to trace it and identify it. There it is. Complicated, which is when I think of Lucy. I love Lucy in the view of the conveyor belt and the chocolates. It's like everything can go along just fine until the conveyor belt starts going too fast, or you trip up somewhere and then you just can't keep up with it. So you need more strategies. You need tools. You need to make adjustments. And the analogy I would use is being a mom with 3 kids and traveling soccer away every weekend in different directions. It means that everything has to be very structured and movable, but defined, because kids on the road, rides, money for hotel, it's crazy. So the last one, or the next one, is complex, which is, it's big. It's not linear. Complex is the interactions of all these different components, and it's like watching things from all different places and saying, I don't even know how to put this in a line. I don't know how to manage it, and my strategies that I used to use don't work. And then, the example I would use with that is I get in my car yesterday. I have a Subaru, and I turn it on, and the traction, which says that it's icy, is on. It's 45 degrees. There's no ice. Cruise control's flashing. The brake light's on, and the check engine. And it was interesting. I was in the car with a girlfriend, and I just kept looking at it, and I kept saying to her, this doesn't happen. These are random pieces of flashing that have no sequence with each other, so something different is off with my car. I want to go home and find out what it is. YouTubed it, and it's the gas cap. When the gas cap leaks just a little bit, when the seal is broken, that's like the only way that they can get your attention. But I thought that was very cool. So that's complex. How do you try to find out what the patterns are of what's trying to get your attention? The last one is chaos, when things are so out of control that you don't even know where to start. What we're doing right now in our cultures and in our relationships and in our parenting is that we're dealing with complex, obviously. So when life is complex, we need a different approach. We need to bring ourselves into steady balance. We need to drop underneath or go up above, and we need to come up with a view of, what else is going on? What do I notice? And then keep exploring the layers and look for patterns and repetitive connections and go, because like the example I used with my Subaru, I've seen each one of those lights go off. I know exactly what it means when it does, but to have all of them go off and none of them are connected, that was curious. That got my attention. So multidimensional beings like me, like you, are simply those of us who get to a place within where we can access several different perspectives at once. We've learned to hold several different perspectives at once, and they can all coexist that way within us. I believe we're all able to do this. I think it's just about whether or not we're comfortable, whether we've been taught. So when we are multidimensional, we notice the interactions and relationships between experiences, events, problems, relationships, solutions. We see, and we have to get outside the box in order to do that. So relationships are complex because they're all moving around at once. You've got one kid doing this, you've got another kid doing this, you've got your spouse doing this, your body's doing this, and so how do you come at complexity? And it's always been there. It's when we take these 4 really significant elements, the mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual, and we realize that we can cohabitate all of those at the same time. So physically, it means, like notice how you sit in the chair. Notice the sounds, the sights, the temperature, your body. Does it rumbling? Is it time to eat? What's going on? Am I hungry? Am I not hungry? What's my energy level like? What does it look like to be in this physical world? That's crucial. Mentally, the mental component is thinking, that thinking practice of how do I collect data and store it. What are my options, my to-dos, the next steps? How do I problem solve? How do I strategize? How do I gather the pieces and put them together and start to notice the patterns and the sequencing, pulling from every direction and bringing it into order? The emotional is noticing the sensations in your body, the feelings that are coming up, the triggers, the reactions to people, places, things, events, opinions that hurt, people that make you feel uncomfortable when you're around them, people who make you feel open and happy. Anger, worry, fear. Notice where these emotions are in your body and what that might look like or feel like or experience it. And then the fourth is the spiritual, which is that connection between everything, the relationships, the experiences that we have on a much deeper level. And it's where we can go out in nature and start to notice, oh, I'm just part of all of this. The way that the birds react, the way that the trees are, the way that my breathing matches the outdoors. This is how they call it the symphony of nature, how we start to just all interact together is the example I would use of spiritual. So how can you carry all four of these around with you at the same time? It means that you have to sort of relax and allow each of them to talk to you at the same time and not say one's better than the other. Just let every form of these four directions talk to you at the same time. I was working on a podcast on Friday with this lovely mom. She's doing a podcast called Mother's Intuition. And she was talking about her kids, and she was saying, well, my son will go from A to Z to B to F to, all over the place. And I just smiled. And I thought, well, wait a minute. We're still talking about a linear plane of the alphabet. What I think multidimensionality is when I can get onto a piece of paper and write A, blue, truck, water, the sound of the refrigerator, and that they're all talking to me in a language that I understand. So sometimes I write these little sequences and it looks a lot like advanced physics. It's like, A plus, Aries, I'll make the little sign of Aries, plus Chiron, plus the weather, plus, and then I can start to see the interconnection between everything. So when you stabilize and you go below or above, or you defocus a little bit more, just enough to notice, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you feel? And what do you know about life from this place? In 2011, I met a woman at Montana Coffee Traders in Whitefish, and after having this lovely coffee with her, as she's saying goodbye and leaving, she said, you're just so beautifully multidimensional. 2011, I'd never heard the term applied to a human being or to me, and I was thinking, what does that mean? And as I've begun from 2011 over the last 8 years to embrace what is multidimensionality, what does it mean to be aware on a quantum level of so many things and how it affects me and what I can do with that, I've been able to bring this into the work that I do with parents, the work I do with adults to adult relationships. I've been able to help people understand children. This is what I do. It's fun and it's always changing. So if this is something that you're interested in, let me know. You can find me on DeniseDrydenCoaching.com, and have a lovely Sunday. Stay warm and enjoy this winter. Take care. Bye-bye.